Using the correct needle for the different fabrics that you're working on is very important. So we have the various materials in front of you here, and I'm going to be telling you about these different materials and the best one that I think beginners will handle much better. So we have the satin. These two are satin material. Right away you see how this material have a mind of its own, right? So imagine a beginner trying to make something out of this. It would be very, very difficult. Chiffon material, that is another very light material, is very fiddly. So I would not recommend this type of material for a beginner. This type of satin is a stretch satin, and even this will be difficult for a beginner. This is a metallic material. It doesn't have any stretch, however, it can be difficult for beginner. This one is a cotton material, and everyone knows cotton is a material that is basically easy to work with. However, this is a cotton stretch, right? This have two-way stretch. So this is another one I would not recommend for beginners. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the cotton. This material is an organic cotton, very good for beginners. There are no stretch in this. This is another cotton material, no stretch. Recommend. This is a canvas material, it's a solid canvas. Recommend. These two are print canvas. Recommend. However, I'm going to be telling you about the print materials. Another thing I want to let you guys know is when you're working on these different materials, always have the correct needle. Satin materials, you will need the fine needle, and I'm going to show you what I mean. All right, so I have all these needles in front of me here. Once you're sewing, you need different needles. It's a lot that goes into sewing. You can't just sew every material with one needle. We have universal, we have denim needles, we have the metallic needle, we have the stretch needle, we have assorted needles, we have sharps, we have everything here. For the satin materials, I would use a fine needle. And the fine needle would be, for me, would be 70-10. And this is the needle I would recommend you use to sew fine materials like satin, chiffons, and things like that. And you can also use this for cotton as well, but certain cotton material. This material have a bit of stretch. You would need to use a needle that accommodate the stretch. So you will purchase this needle that says stretch, and that would work on that. If you use this one here, the universal, and it's okay, go right ahead. So always use a needle that accommodates the stretch. The same thing for this one. I would use the needle that says stretch for stretch material. So when it comes to the metallic, let me put this aside because we're finished with that for now. The needle that says metallic, and this is a 80 by 12. And that is the needle that would sew this material perfectly. All right, so when it comes to the cotton, it doesn't have any stretch and things like that. It's very easy to work on. These are the type of materials that I would recommend for beginners to work on. Cotton, linen, canvas, calico, all those materials that don't have stretch. That's the best material for you to start working with. Right, so as I was saying, when it comes to this material, I would use the universal 70-10 on these materials. These materials are quite light. You don't want a big needle, so when you go to stitch, it would leave the hole in the material. You would use this needle so you'll get that nice fine finish without that big holes. All right, so that's what I would use. Also, canvas materials, I would use this needle as well. It depends on what you're doing. You know, when you go to fold the material, it gets thicker. So in that case, I would use, they were all universal, but instead of using the 70-10, I would probably use the 116 or the 90-14. With the universal needles, they have various sizes. For the canvas, I would use a bigger size, but the universal. All right, okay, so that's enough for needles. Okay, so back to the materials. Another thing I would like to explain when it comes to material is the directional materials, meaning the materials that have the prints, such as this material and these materials, even this one. But this one you don't have to worry about because it's just one direction, so it doesn't really matter with this one. Okay, so I am going to concentrate on these. These print materials are what you will call directional materials. For me, that's what I would call them, meaning the prints that are on these, they have patterns. So when you're cutting these materials, like for example, this print is going in that direction and only in that direction. So for example, when you're cutting this material, you have to make sure that your pattern is going in the right direction. For example, if I'm making a blouse, I wouldn't turn it this way to cut my blouse, because what's going to happen, my pattern is going to be going across. So you got to make sure your material is facing upward direction as far as where the pattern is going. So for me, if I'm cutting a dress and I'm going to fold the material this way, my neck is going to be here, right? So I would have my pattern going up towards my neck. Always make sure you follow the directions of your patterns. If I'm not making myself clear, please leave in the comment section your concerns. Ooh, look at this. This is what you call a stripe material. It's another directional material. But this pattern is not going in one direction. It's going this way. Some of the stripes going this way, and this pattern is going that way. This is not very complicated. However, if you're making a blouse and you have to join the seams, if you decide for this set of stripes to go across the body, you have to make sure once you reach the side seams, all these stripes that's going that way, they meet up correctly on the side. Like for example, that's a side seam, okay? And you have these two black lines here and the yellow. You would not want to have it like that. You see where this one is now? You would want to have it where this one meets that one, and that would make it look a lot better. So when you go to buy stripe materials or any directional materials, always buy extra. So when you go to sew it, you have sufficient material to match up your lines, your patterns, or whatever print there is. Alright, so this is another directional material, and this material has peacocks. And the thing is, with these directional materials, you have to really pay attention to the pattern. The peacocks I am going to pay attention to, and all the peacocks from what I'm seeing are in this direction. So if you ever turn this material this way and then you fold it to cut, and then this is your neckline, your peacocks are going to be going across the body and it would not look nice. Always keep your material in the direction of the pattern. So if I'm going to turn this way to cut up top, my neckline is here, my peacocks will be in the right direction going up towards my neck. Alright, so it may sound a bit complicated for beginners, but it's not. You just follow your pattern and you'll be fine. When it comes to stretch material, one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're cutting stretch, even though for beginners this is not the right material to work on, I'm still going to tell you a little bit about stretch material. You see, this material stretch in both directions. So when it comes to cutting this, you really don't have to worry, because no matter if you turn it this way or you turn it that way to cut, you will still have the stretch either way. So this is one of the things to keep in mind. So this satin, it stretches in one direction. So if you're making a top and you fold it this way, you're going to cut your neckline. You would have the stretch going this way so that it can stretch across your body. If you ever turn it the opposite direction to cut, and this is your neckline, the stretch would be no more. Stretch now will be going lengthways. So this is something you need to keep in mind as well whenever you're cutting materials. So when you're buying materials, if you find this type of material is too much, for example the stretch, where the stretch goes and all that, always buy one that has 4-way stretch. So then if you make a mistake, you wouldn't it wouldn't be a problem. This 1-way stretch, if you make a mistake as far as where you want the stretch to be, then it would be a big problem. Alright, this doesn't have any stretch, so you'll be fine with this one as well. Alright, so that's the end of this video. I hope this video was very informative for you, and any suggestions, any comments, any questions, any queries, please leave in the comment section and I will sure to answer them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.